We have a lot of questions and people asking our thoughts and opinions on Marianne Williamson. Like a lot of questions.
I want Olay to go first.
Marianne
Williamson. So do I.
I saw that face.
I want to set the tempo. Set the tempo. Come on.
I ain't got nothing to say. You don't have about that. Knock yourselves out.
So I have a bigger breakdown on my channel this week. My first video on it. Basically, I don't know. Point is, she's not going to defeat Biden for the nomination. Just to quickly clear anybody that thinks that is a possibility.
It's not the point.
It's not like Bernie Sanders. It's not like Donald Trump. Voters on the right vote because of emotion, that kind of thing. Democratic voters vote usually based on media narratives, based on what's comfortable, based on who they're told is electable. That's not Marianne Williamson. We're talking about a primary. We're talking about an incumbency in Joe Biden. So it's not like 2016. Williamson's not in government. So it's anyways, she's not going to be Biden for various reasons. Watch my video for more on that. In terms of, whether this is a serious run, whether it's to sell her books, my point on that is that her intention doesn't matter as much as potential impact, and the potential impact, if she is covered, which I don't think she will be past this week, but if she is covered by the media, by mainstream press generally, then there is a potential there to have what she is discussing in her platform, which is a good, it's the working class message. It's a Bernie message. There is a good chance that could, maybe stop Biden from trying to just grab right-wing voters, is what, these runs typically try to do. They try to go after voters on the right as opposed to bring out new people to vote, is how Democrats should be trying to win. But I don't have much faith that's going to happen because I don't think she's going to be covered, really. So regardless of her intention in the run, I don't think that matters as much as the potential impact, but that impact really, I think, is going to be negligible. But.
Ooh, such a downer answer. And also, I feel like it's worth mentioning that, yeah, you're correct about that, David. The mainstream media is not going to give her a fair amount of airtime. They're not going to cover this in a fair and non-biased way, but that's where independent media steps in. Independent media, online left-wing independent media, is one of the cornerstones of Bernie Sanders' success as a left-wing candidate in 2016 and 2020. Basically, this whole online independent left-wing ecosystem that the Vanguard exists in, and certainly all of these shows exist in, is thanks to the presidential campaign of Bernie Sanders. Basically, all these shows either popped up or really got popular as a result of their coverage of Bernie. So while I agree to an extent that Marianne faces a massively uphill battle against Joe Biden, facing an incumbent president, I do think that we could bring a little bit more optimism to the table here and say, yeah, sure, the mainstream media is not going to be fair, but fuck the mainstream media. We're left-wing independent media, and we're going to step in to do that job instead and actually give Marianne her due.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what you said there, Gavin, but I also would add that it sounds remarkably similar to the kind of things that people said about Bernie Sanders in 2016, right? Well, he's running on a good working class message, and he supports a lot of things that I support, but don't you think that it's scaring off some of the right-wing voters that Hillary Clinton could be getting that just aren't comfortable with the crazy person like Donald Trump, right? Don't you think that Bernie should just, kind of ease off a little bit? There's no way anybody's going to beat Hillary Clinton, right? And I agree that Bernie was far more likely to beat Hillary Clinton than Marianne Williamson is to defeat Joe Biden. I mean, just far more likely. The time, it was like lightning in a bottle. Bernie Sanders ignited a movement. There were so many people behind him. Could that happen for Marianne Williamson? Of course, but we haven't seen it happen yet. And, don't have much evidence to believe that we're going to catch lightning in a bottle again so soon, but could happen. I'm not writing it off quite as bad as David Dole is, but yeah, I think that, we're talking about like very fluke situations where it becomes even remotely as competitive as it was for Bernie Sanders.
I don't know.
If she uses
watch my videos for more.
Do you want to plug before I say something? But I was gonna say, if she uses this as like an opportunity to basically go on mainstream media and then be like, hey, we should end the military-industrial complex. That's cool. So I'd be fine with that if that's like the extent of it, right? And Biden should probably not expand the amount of money the Pentagon's asking for weapons and bombs and not do that thing. That'd be great. So if that's all there is to it, then yeah, I don't really have any opposition to the run, so to speak.
And to be clear, she has been doing she has been doing that in interviews this week and I guess last week. She has if you go to her site, a solid platform, and she's discussed it, and she's I think a solid orator for at least a certain audience. But I don't think past this week there's going to be a whole lot of talk about Williamson.
Yeah, I mean, there's no downsides to her running. I think that for the left, there's only positives. I'm going to be voting for her in a primary. Like, why not? I don't want people to get their hopes up and think that there could be like another Bernie Sanders situation, because as David said, like, this is a primary challenger to an incumbent president. She has a near zero chance of winning. So best case scenario, she can kind of exert pressure on Biden or elevate the salience of particular issues. And that does matter. Like,
also, I agree with that. But you have to remember the 2016 primary that Bernie Sanders ran in, he might as well have been challenging an incumbent president. Like, technically, no, Hillary Clinton was not the incumbent president. But the way that the DNC treated that primary was as if it was. Everyone was discouraged from jumping into that race. Even fucking Joe Biden, who was Obama's vice president, was basically told by Obama himself and the DNC, like, bro, it's Hillary's turn. Get the fuck out of the way. Even though you were just vice president and are the natural and obvious successor to President Obama, even he was told to get the hell out of Hillary's way and stay on the sidelines, which, by the way, he did do and ultimately regretted doing, which then opened up the lane for Bernie Sanders to jump in there, who was really the only established politician with the balls to challenge Hillary Clinton. So it's not 100% analogous. And obviously, I'm not, telling you guys that Marianne Williamson doesn't face a huge uphill battle here and that it's not likely she ultimately wins. But I'm just saying, the 2016 primary that Bernie Sanders shocked the world by actually building a movement in and, posing a serious threat to Hillary, actually giving her a run for her money, it might as well have been the similar situation where Hillary was the incumbent, because that's how the DNC was treating it.
Yep.
That's not insignificant. I think that does matter. But in terms of like, there's like this sub conversation going on about whether or not she should have ran as a third party candidate. None of that matters until we actually change the institutions, because our institutions are set up so there is always just two parties. It's called Duverger's law. So what she's doing here is, I think, the best that she can to influence the conversation. And regardless if that is to promote a book or something like that, I honestly don't care, as long as she's talking about these issues, like she's talking about Medicare for all and healthcare. I love that. I value that. So if she brings that to the table and gets Biden to maybe do better, which probably not, but Biden ran away from a public option. So to recenter the conversation on Medicare for all, when we were kind of skewing further right and not even discussing a public option, I think that is important. So like, to the extent that I'll support Marianne Williamson, I'm voting for her. I'm not going to donate any money, unfortunately, and I can't recommend that other people do the same, because it's like, we're stretched thin, right? There's other members of Congress that we want to see get elected, or potential members of Congress that we want to see get elected. So, you don't have to get super invested in this. Don't get your hopes up. It's just, this is about messaging, period.
Yeah, I would just jump in and say that I think that's a pretty good place for people to be at right there. The message that Mike left. There's no downside. We need somebody who's an effective, capable messenger. Marianne seems to be willing and able to do that. Why would we turn it away? But like, should you spend your last $5 on a women of prayer to see her get elected? Like, probably not. No.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. 100%.
You're all being very nice. Listen, I think she, as a person who's put herself out there, she seems like she believes what she says, and she seems like a very nice individual. But this run, what's behind it? Nothing. There's nothing behind it. I'm not going to tell someone not to run. Anyone who wants to run should run. But the whole point of pushing someone, if you're running a campaign, even if the point is you're going to lose, but to push someone, there's supposed to be a movement behind you. That's why Bernie's campaign was so successful. That's why those left-wing campaigns that just
and we have to remind Matt here that at this point in Bernie's campaign, he didn't have a movement behind him. Marianne Williamson just announced, like, fucking less than a week ago, or less than 2 weeks ago, I mean. At this point in Bernie's 2016 campaign, he also did not have a movement behind him. He had like 15 people in a field of grass, gathered around his podium. I am challenging the Democratic establishment. No one cared. No one cared. It took him several months to really build that momentum, to really build that movement, and for that spark to kind of ignite a fire behind him. Again, I'm not saying that Marianne Williamson will be able to replicate that. I'm not necessarily saying that. But it is a little bit unfair of Matt to say, well, where's the movement behind her? Like, there's no momentum behind it. Yeah, there may at some point be that movement. There may at some point be that momentum, assuming she connects with voters and assuming that independent left-wing media does its part and covers her fairly and is able to, explain to their audiences why this is an important candidacy.
Just try to push someone towards the left are more successful because there's some sort of movement behind them, or the individual is a well-respected, long-time person within the scene, the leftist movement. She's just not that. There's nothing behind her. The idea that she's going to push Biden anywhere is, and I say this as someone who thinks she's nice, it's laughable. It's laughable. She's not going to be able to do any of that. She isn't. And I'm saying she should run. She should run. She should do whatever the hell she wants. I like her. I like what she says. She just doesn't have that long-term standing within the left. Like, I remember in 2016, when did she run? In 2020 she ran, right?
Yeah,
I remember in 2020, like, she was like learning as she went. She was like asking people after a debate, what do you all think of Medicare for all? Because that wasn't her original position. And she saw that.
Mind. Yeah, she went against it because someone brought up how, like, wouldn't private insurance be like abolished? She like, it would? Oh, I'm against it now. Like, she changed.
Listen,
listen, why did you change your mind? Like, what the hell?
It's great if she changes her mind or whatever, but if you're going to be that strong candidate who's going to push the president of the United States left, you need some, you need something behind that. And she doesn't have it. She doesn't have that.
Groups, something. Yeah. I in my first video on that, I mentioned as
okay,
well.
Can I jump in here?
She's been building this for.
Who does have that, Matt? Because I'm with you. Okay, you sold me on the idea. Let's have somebody who's deeply entrenched in the progressive movement, who's been doing this for a long time, that has a massive following. Let's have them run and challenge Joe Biden on the platform that Marianne's with. I'm not married to Marianne. I'm not like, we don't know each other like that. Like, you find me that person that's like a sure thing, that's like gonna get stadium size Vampire Weekend's gonna play a show for them, or fucking all kinds of stuff like that. Great. Sign me up. I'll fucking go anywhere in all 50 states. I'll go fucking find that guy. Where are they? Where? I'm waiting for them. It is nobody else, right? So you can have all of these concerns. I have concerns. I articulate them all the time. But this mythology, like, you're basically just arguing why we should do nothing, why we should just not have a presidential challenge to Joe Biden. And I think that's a missed opportunity in messaging that, like, we have somebody that can go and make our case to the American people to make our ideas more popular and also maintain their relevance as we get iced out of the conversation every other time of the 4-year presidential term, right? This is the only time we can really force our way into the conversation. The squad has proven and demonstrated time and time again they're not interested in disrupting Congress when it's in session, right? The only time you ever have a window of opportunity to really make some noise is during the presidential election. People watch that shit. People pay attention to that shit. That's how Bernie Sanders was able to get everybody on board with it. This is the time when people want to learn about policy ideas. Let's give them something to learn. Let's reinforce what they already knew, that healthcare is a human right. That that it shouldn't be fucking expensive to go to the dentist. Like, you know what I'm saying? That it should be free for everybody. That it should be something that you should just do. That it should just be like going to the library or driving on a road. That, things that we should just take care of for people. Let's not let the conversation get so far drifted to the right that people forget all of those things were even on the table, right? When it goes back to Obamacare was giving everybody health care. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Even though they tried to pretend and market it like it was. That's what happens when you let the neoliberals take over, when they can completely dominate the conversation. People were in tears thinking that Obamacare was going to change their life. It never did, right? It never did. we have to have somebody out here that's making the case. And I'm with you, Matt. She had some bad takes in 2020. I was a hardcore Bernie bro. Nobody was saying fuck every other candidate but Bernie louder than me. Okay, 100%. But I'm still waiting for somebody better to be thrown out there. Who? Find me that person. Let's have the two of them debate. You know, let's see it happen. Where is that other person? If there is no one, why are we splitting hairs here? Why are we not just, all right, this is what we have, let's go with it?
A couple of years, because it doesn't seem like it. It's more just like all of a sudden, I'm running for president. She has a nice graphic, and I don't know, I guess there's some money behind her somehow. But there's no, it does, I agree with you. There's nothing that's
I respect that she's running as a Democrat and not third party, so she could, play some sort of spoiler role. Because I mean, she knows what her role here is, or what she hopes for it to be, and it's not that she's going to be president. It's that maybe.
Uh-oh, Matt. You've walked into some swampy water here, because I have to hardcore disagree with you. That nobody's entitled to become president, and the spoiler argument is a really, really tired one. Like, this is why people get angry about the left when they don't want to do anything. So now you don't want to run a challenger, and you also don't want to run anybody on the third party. You just think that Joe Biden is entitled to be reelected. Why? Because of the threat of the evil of Donald Trump, but let's say, right, it looks like he's going to be able to do away with DeSantis, but either Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump, the likely winners of the Republican primary, most likely Donald Trump, right? And it's just really freaking exhausting, okay? Because I was just about once a year, right? I reread Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail, not once a year, maybe every couple years, right? Just for some good inspiration. And Hunter Thompson has this great screed of prose where he's talking about how this is, they're always peddling this line about how this is the most important election of our lifetime. And if it's all about defeating Nixon, it's about, we got to get Nixon out of office. And that's why we have to settle for Humphrey. And he was, of course, in that time referring to 1968. And the squashing of any activist movement outside there. So to say that your one compliment to Marianne Williamson is that she's nice and that you're glad that she's running in the Democratic primary because then she won't be a spoiler. I just think that adds a lot of I don't know. It just takes away a little bit from the democracy element, right? It's like, oh, now Joe Biden is entitled to win re-election. It's the same argument that people on the right wing corner of the Democratic Party make all the time, where it's like, oh, it's his right to be the nominee again because he won last time around. And I'm like, really? Because I don't think that's his right. I think that everybody has to win re-election again, even if you are president. Because what if you did a bad job during your first term and people want to get rid of you, right? So of course there has to be challengers to that guy. Joe Biden did a terrible fucking job. First thing he did when he rolled into the Oval Office was short of $600. Okay, the list goes on and on. No $15 minimum wage. No infrastructure bill that was worth a fucking goddamn. Yada, yada, yada. They did the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which was basically nothing. They want to wag around the CHIPS Act. They just fucking paid off the chip manufacturing companies their fucking hostage fee, essentially. All of that shit. It was all fake progress. And now he's just supposed to be crowned again, another coronation, unchallenged. Anybody else who dares to actually present good ideas is a spoiler? Give me a break, bro. Come on.